Well, that aged well. Good to see you, everyone. My name is Robbie Howell. Let's discuss the Three Kingdoms debacle. There's a lot to go over, and I know that this has been done to death, so I apologize for rehashing things. I promise I'm not just going to be repeating everything that you've clearly already heard. Rather, I want to discuss solutions. You can consider this video to be intended to be an open letter to the developers, or rather the decision makers behind Age of Empires 2. This is intended to be some level-headed and hopefully well-researched advice that is intended to assist the decision makers in steering our beloved game more soundly going forwards, because this ain't going to do it. And I think that there are ways to correct the ship before it runs aground again. So that's what we're going to be doing today. Promise I won't be rehashing things. But before we dive in, a huge thank you to two fantastic collaborators who were a big reason why this video could actually happen. Those being the longtime viewers and friends of the channel, Tyranno and Bub. They are both deeply involved in the Age of Empires community and helped me so much with the research and compiling sentiment and giving me all of the information I need to actually have a well-informed take on this. It could not have been done without them. So, Tyranno, Bub, you two are the best. Thank you so much. Let's dive in, shall we, everyone? So, first of all, a bit of a preface. As you might imagine, I am not pleased with this DLC. However, I have some disclaimers to go into before we start. For one, this video is not going to be rehashing all of the DLC's drama and nonsense surrounding it. I am going to be reviewing the good and the bad, so there will be a bit of a repeat, but if you don't know about this DLC and you don't know why it's a problem, I definitely recommend checking out another video first. Admiral Wololo, in particular, did a fantastic video summarizing the issues with the Three Kingdoms DLC, and I'm going to link that in the description down below. My focus with this video is to dig deep on the issues rather than summarizing them, and hopefully I succeed in that. Another disclaimer. This criticism, and there will be plenty of it, is not aimed at the passionate developers that make Age of Empires 2 come to life. As per usual, my criticism is aimed at the decision makers who helm the projects, choose what to make the projects about, and choose how to advertise them to the broader community. It is they that I have my quibbles with. And like I mentioned, I'm going to be proposing solutions here rather than just whinging. So if you happen to be watching and you happen to be a decision maker over at World's Edge or Microsoft or something of that nature, this is for you. And while I will be couching my frustrations in what I hope are humorous, hyperbolic terms, I do actually mean what I say here as useful to you guys. I'm going to be, again, trying to propose solutions and suggestions, as well as iterating why this is a problem that cannot be ignored. So though my words may be harsh at times, the intention behind them is entirely to help the game. Also of note, I still stand by the sentiment in my thank you devs video, linked up here, specifically for the fantastic patch. Like I said, the devs are not to blame, like the people who actually put code to computer and make the game actually happen. They're not to blame at all for this. And credit where credit's due, the patch that we got last month was undeniably fan-fucking-tastic. So that is a shining exemplar of what the game could and should be. This DLC is not. So yeah, consider this video a summary of the broader community's justified displeasure. Now, a little more preface stuff before we dive in. I wanted to also add that we, and by we I mean the vast majority of the people unhappy with this DLC, desperately wanted and still want a proper East Asian DLC. I've been clamoring for one for years, as have most people in my comment sections, and from what I've been told, many others out on the internet. Even a Three Kingdoms DLC would have likely done okay if it had been Chronicles and had been advertised as such from the beginning. Now, the takeaway from this video should not, and I emphasize not, be that innovation, or even worse, non-European content should be avoided. Quite the contrary. We want innovation. We want non-European content. We want the game to continue to expand, but we don't want it done this way. Additionally, to those who like this DLC, go buy it. I won't stop you. Nor would I suggest that you stop if you genuinely like what they are showing here. Reason being is that this one is actually reasonably priced for its content. In fact, very reasonably priced. I'll get to that a little later. But the argument of, you can't criticize the DLC or they might stop supporting the game is crap. When consumers stop advocating for themselves, they get screwed. And it's not because, oh, big, bad, evil. No. It's just because that's how it works. If you say, oh, we love this no matter what happens, the people producing the content will say, great, have some more. That means we can probably get some more out of you. It is natural. Do not do that. This, thank you, sir, may I have another crap, is how we lose. We who love the game, because we will get less and less and less and be asked more and more and more of it. Remember, I'll be talking about this a little more later, Total War players fought back against Creative Assembly being greedy, and they were rewarded with an improved DLC and a game doubled in size, as well as the company learning how to properly communicate with them from then on. Do you guys remember that? There's a dozen and a half other examples of big studios, or even medium-sized studios, dealing with consumer pushback by adjusting their strategy for the better. That is what we can do here. Cut it out with masochistic, please sir, may I have another approach. Now, with the preface out of the way, I think credit where credit's due, let's review the good of this DLC, because some of it is good. First of all, the patch. Now, this is not a part of the DLC, of course, but it was a huge win. All that stuff for free is like the best thing we've gotten in Age of Empires in years. I'd say since Dynasties of India, if not even better than that. It also primed the community with big expectations for the DLC, and the hype train certainly didn't help that. So while the patch is not part of the DLC, the two definitely kind of got lumped together in the broader mindset of the community, so I'll be kind of conflating them in some regard. But they are separate and should be treated that way. Now, another good thing out of this DLC was the modding options. There's a bunch of amazing new mechanics for talented creators to make awesome stuff with, and it was released for free with the above patch, but it was only added because of what the DLC is introducing, so I count it as like a DLC good rather than a patch good here. The modding stuff is fantastic. Another good thing are regionals. All are great and seem really fun. And more excitingly, they open up the precedent for more and more regionals to be added down the line, which, if you are a maximalist like me, you think is a very good thing. And in general, the original game is becoming less and less sacred. Between this, new skins for elite unique units and castles, all this stuff, this is good. This is good for the game. The original game should not be sacred. And if you think that, you should go play HD. Next, the price. This, I actually think, is the best thing about the new DLC. It costs $20, $17 after the discount, and you get 5 civs and 3 campaigns. And that is what I call a great frickin' deal. I'm really happy with the price. Even if I think 4 out of the 5 civilizations are misguided at best and utter crap at worst, and the campaigns are not the ones that we wanted, the price is good for the amount of content. Just in terms of pure content to dollar ratio, this is great. And we shouldn't take that away from them. We just don't like the content itself. But the pricing, that was one of my biggest problems with the last 2 or 3 DLCs we got. Fixed that. Awesome. Let's have it this way from now on, please. Another good thing, the Jurchens. The design is not my personal favorite, but it feels at least somewhat historically authentic. They clearly, tried. And it also looks really fun, even if goofy in places. And additionally, even though the Kitanguts civilization is a Frankenstein abomination, there are some parts that I actually really liked when I reviewed it on stream. You can go take a look at that up here. Specifically, the civilization bonuses that they came up with seem fine, and some even seem great. So I don't want to take that away from them. They did a good job with the bonuses. But the Tangut elements, like the aesthetic Tangut stuff, are a travesty, and the unique technologies are crap, and I didn't like the unique units either. So some parts of the Kitanguts are good, despite the rest of it being bad. Now, speaking of bad, let's talk more about the bad of the DLC. I won't linger on this too long again. I'm building towards solutions and trying to explain precisely what was the problem for anyone who happens to have decision-making power who happens to be watching. I'm not just whinging here. First, bait and switch advertising. This was by far and away the biggest issue. The Three Kingdoms elements were never implied in any real way in the screenshots. All of the 3K regionals were used well into the AoE2 timeframe by the Tang and others, so their inclusion in promo material is not indicative of Three Kingdoms. The Khitans and Tanguts never once shown to be combined in the screenshots. There was a lot of speculation. Oh my god, that's clearly Tangut stuff. Maybe they'll have the Tanguts and Jurchens. Oh, never once did it show Khitans and Tanguts being combined. And for good reason, because that would have been not well received. If they had come out from the beginning saying this was a Three Kingdoms thing that also had Jurchens and some other stuff, it wouldn't have been nearly as much of a problem. Although, as I'll get to later, Three Kingdoms is very overdone, and I think people would have grumbled a bit. But not nearly as bad. Another issue that came about from this were certain elements of the hype circuit. We won't split the Chinese, says Sishin. Very poor choice of words, but again, I don't personally blame him. He clearly just had a different idea of what split means than the broader community. And again, I think he's more of a dev than a decision maker, so I wouldn't lay the blame at his feet whatsoever. It still, though, contributed to the problem. You liked Dynasties of India? We're taking notes. Remember when they said that like a year and a half ago? Yeah, take better notes, guys. These ones sucked. And now, on top of all that, it seems like they're trying to backpedal and justify themselves. No, just cut that out. Admit you fucked up and move on, and that'll be the first step to fixing this nonsense. Now, more stuff on the bad. The Khitanguts, why are we combining them? They were nowhere near the same people. Didn't occupy the same space temporally, physically, in any sort of substantive way. There's more than enough material for both. If you're like, oh my god, we cannot find Liao Dynasty castle skins, I could have given you some. I literally researched this myself. Oh, they need a second unique unit. I could have given you 3. No, not saying, oh, come to Rob. No, fuck that. I'm saying there is material out there, comfortably material out there, for all the stuff that they shoved Tangut elements in. Why combine them? No goddamn reason. And of note, the Tanguts were genocided by the Mongols. One of the first, well-recorded accounts of a full genocide in history. And then this choice just wipes them off the map once again. Great. Lovely. Absolutely freaking delightful. Anyways, more bad. Heroes. This is not how to do it. This is a very misguided addition to the game, and this is coming from me, the change everything guy. I would love to add heroes to the game, but I would prefer it in a separate expanded mode that came with a bunch of other things that made the game more cool and interesting and weren't as competitively oriented. And that also lets heroes be more unique and cool and does them more justice and doesn't screw around with competitive mode. This implementation just give ammo to players who hate change. And now there's evidence that they're going to do this to all the civilizations. So this is going to be wildly unpopular with the majority of the competitive crowd. And a lot of the casual crowd is also like, this feels weird, this feels forced. If you were going to do it to all of them. And even if you were going to do it to all of them, heroes are kind of just boring, right now. They're just meat sticks on legs that regenerate and can't be converted. If heroes were more interesting, this would probably be, quite well received, especially if they were more interesting and maybe relegated to their own game mode, as well as being given to all civilizations. We'll get more to that a little later. In summary, heroes can be done well, and I would highly advocate them being added, but this feels boring and lazy. Maybe I'll end up appreciating it down the line. That remains to be seen. I just do not think this was the good way to introduce bringing heroes to the game more fully. Now, more bad stuff. The Three Kingdoms civilizations are stupid. They should not be in the game. This has been talked about endlessly. I'll briefly rehash. They unproductively push the already bloated time frame. You may notice, again, I'm the maximalist guy. If I'm saying this, you know it's a problem. And why am I saying this? If we already had 100 civilizations in the game, including all the obvious misses, like the Tanguts, I might be okay with pushing the time frame. But while there is so much still to add to the game, I see no reason to push the time frame. That is very unproductive and just makes people annoyed with you for not doing all the stuff that you should be doing that is actually in the medieval time frame. The Three Kingdoms were also states rather than ethnicities. They are all Han Chinese. I don't mind state-based civilizations, but also they were extremely short-lived. That feels weird to me. Yes, they are iconic, no doubt about that, but again, it's somewhat a break of tradition, isn't it? Why not have the Kingdom of Jerusalem? That was also very iconic, and in various forms much more long-lived than this. Oh, but the Romans pushed the time frame just... No, they do not. The Romans existed within the pre-existing AoE2 time frame comfortably. Oh, but the 3K tech level is comparable to the Middle Age. No, it's not. No more than a whole host of other antiquity civilizations. How many antiquity civilizations do you who make this argument want to see in the game, and why are these ones special? They are no closer to the Middle Ages than like 24 others that I could name off the top of my head, even some from an earlier time frame than like 180 to 225 AD. Additionally, if we get into the comparable tech level waters, it's also solid ground to exclude civilizations like the Aztecs from the game. And I'm guessing you don't want to do that. Maybe you do. Maybe you're just that kind of weird. I don't know. Next, the stupid Three Kingdoms exclusive campaigns are a perfect illustration of why these boneheaded civilizations do not belong. They don't interact with any existing civilizations in any sort of meaningful way. That by itself should be good enough grounds to not include them. Even highly isolated current civilizations like the Inca have at least 2 points of contact. Portuguese, Spanish. 2 points of contact. How many points of contact do the 3K civilizations have? Oh, they have 2 themselves. I'm sorry, I don't think that's how it should work. And if you say, well, that's an unwritten rule, sure, as with the rest of Age of Empires 2 design, and as such, you guys, the ones that I see you whinging in my comment section, have no further grounds to complain about my civilization choices if you're okay with this. And I don't think you are. Now, does that mean the 3K civilizations should never have been added to the game? No, actually. They would have been perfect for Chronicles. However, even if they had been done right in Chronicles, the Three Kingdoms is a very overdone period of Chinese history, and Chinese players in particular want more of their history represented in Age of Empires 2 within its traditional time frame. Why do we keep going back to Three Kingdoms? Is it because Dynasty Warriors does it? Is it because shitty gacha games do it? Why? But on top of all that, the half-assed execution of this DLC really shines through and really rubs me the wrong way. So first of all, we were promised 5 civilizations and no Chinese split. And instead we get a half-baked version of the most overdone topic in Chinese history, a Frankenstein abomination of the civilization that should have been there in the first place, and on top of that, the civilizations that should have been there are incomplete. There's no unique voice lines or campaigns for the Khitanguts or the Jurchens, plus a lot of reused graphics in all of their campaigns and similar. Why? Why is that the station the hype train has led to? And why should we be okay with that? Why? Well, let's talk about why. But less of an aggressive why. Let's talk about the most charitable reasons that the bad decisions of this DLC could have been made. Pure speculation, but we should give people the benefit of the doubt here. 1. The Three Kingdoms is widely represented in other media. Dynasty Warriors, blah-de-blah-de-blah. This seems like it'd be popular. I can totally picture someone with decision-making power saying that. They obviously want to snag the Chinese markets. That is a completely open secret at this point. Another potential reason why is that Chronicles seems to have been a flop. Now you might say, oh, how do you know that, Robbie? You don't have the numbers. Why else would they do this? Why else would they smash a obvious Chronicles contender in with a obviously independent DLC to make this disaster? Frankly, maybe this was already in progress well before Battle for Greece was released, and they had to pivot once the numbers came in and they saw Battle for Greece didn't do well. This is a guess again. Maybe Battle for Greece did amazingly, but if so, why? Why not release an independent Chronicles? Why not release 2 DLCs? Slam dunk! Perfect fit! Because right now it seems like they had to consolidate last minute with another planned DLC, featuring the Jurchens and the Khitanguts. Now, why Jurchens and Khitanguts? Why not Jurchens, Khitans, and Tanguts? It seems as though they may have like an only 2 civilizations per DLC mandate, likely from on high, likely so they can keep churning out content and so that they don't spoil us. If Jurchens and Khitanguts were originally meant to be standalone, this would explain why the latter was mashed together, of Khitans and Tanguts like shoved into one very incongruent mass. And to summarize, just looking through all of these potential reasons, maybe this whole thing was a rush job, mandated from on high, and the developers just had to do the best they could with it. And speaking of which, we actually have some evidence that this was probably the case. So user Assured Observer on Reddit, link in the description down below to their original post, had to dig around in the game files. And the campaign assets for the Three Kingdoms DLC were located with Battle for Greece, not with the other DLCs. All of the campaign images also bear very close resemblance to the Battle for Greece ones, not the traditional campaigns. Some more digging was done, and this popped up. This shows the little flags that you see on the book of campaigns. You may notice that the circled ones say China and Peru. What the heck does that mean? Well, let me explain it to you, as was explained to me. The Chinese campaign tabs do not appear in the DLC. They seem to have been completely scrapped. And this all but confirms that this current DLC is actually two mashed together to explain the rush elements, because the ones labeled Peru are the ones that we actually seem to see in the DLC. Peru seems to have been a code name for the Three Kingdoms DLC. At least the Three Kingdoms part. And as mentioned above, it seems as though medieval China was supposed to be covered in another DLC, and the two were mashed together. So we still have the banner images for what were clearly two different DLCs that were at the last moment consolidated. Also take a look at these campaign UI images. These were found, again, in the files, I believe, again, by Assured Observer. And what do they look like? Do those look like standard campaign graphics, overworld graphics? This is clearly Chronicles material. This was clearly a full planned Chronicles that was scrapped last minute, even after a lot of work had been put into it. Once again, full credit to Tyranno and Bub, plus Assured Observer, and many others for all this investigative work. I did none of this. This is just me reporting on what other people have found. But you can see from what is being turned up here that there is a lot, I would say overwhelming evidence of the two DLCs consolidated theory. And that's a shame, and tells me that unless they had a very good reason, why not, Chronicles was a disaster, as I predicted it might be in my original review of it. Go take a look up here. I hope I'm wrong. Now, we're done with the reviewing all the crap. I've gone into as much depth as I can. Again, sorry if this is taking too long, but let's get to the big questions. Decision makers, this is the important stuff. 1. How much of the response is overreaction versus legitimate disenfranchisement? And of course, the lines between those two are somewhat fine and arbitrary. It's a mix of both. There are many loud voices who have been too extreme towards the devs without knowing who is actually making the decisions. Cision got so much flack for his won't split comment. But like I said earlier, he might have a different idea of what split means to the community writ large. So I don't think that should be placed at his feet. Now, decision makers, do not use this overreaction to dismiss all the legitimate frustration people have here. The disenfranchisement is likely very real. The numbers may bear out otherwise, but from what we are seeing, the sentiments we are seeing, this is probably the worst response an Age of Empires piece of content has ever received, period. Now, this DLC encompasses everything people have had problems with lately. All of it. For the purists of the game, it breaks the feel of the sacred original. For the history lovers, this pushes the time frame too far. Everyone has a problem with this. And once again, terrible communication and misleading hype was a big problem. Nothing, and I repeat, nothing, implied Three Kingdoms. And when Ornlu mentioned it, people thought he was joking. No. That's not a good way to market your DLC. Now, why is the blowback against this DLC so bad? Number 2 question. Let's compare it to some other controversial DLCs and see where they are similar and differ. 1. Victors and Vanquished. The main blowback against that was about recycling pre-existing content and upselling it. That's a very broad summary. I had so many problems with Victors and Vanquished. If you want to see me rant about it, you can take a look up here. That said, it did also have some of the deceptive advertisement stuff that we see repeated here. It will be a campaign DLC. My ass. They didn't say, "Oh, this DLC is honoring Filthy Delphia. This is a historical battle DLC." They said campaign DLC. No, it was not. Similar problems to here. Now, Mountain Royals. That was mostly a cost problem, plus the dumb design of the Armenians. You could kind of argue the Kitangats are like Armenians-ish and how crap they are. But I'd say the biggest problem with Mountain Royals was how expensive it was, which is not a problem here. The Romans' hate for the Return of Rome thing was mostly time frame, which this does share, though it was misled, and I will fight to the death on that. That said, it did also have the issue that many people wanted only half of the DLC, just like here. There's many people who only want the Jurchens and Khitanguts, but not the Three Kingdoms stuff, just like with Return of Rome, people wanted the Romans, but not all of the Age of Empires 1 rehash. Is this a worse response than any of these other listed DLCs? Yes, without a doubt. Every single venue, every forum online, dozens of like Reddit things for people who use Reddit, I don't know, videos from unaffiliated YouTube creators has become a battleground of people discussing how much they either hate or ardently defend this DLC. And the haters seem to be winning. Many comments have also been made discussing quitting Age of Empires 2 over this. And many more still are very pessimistic about the future of the game. Is this hyperbolic? I don't know. The numbers will have to bear it out. I would not be surprised if they are telling the truth. And once again, terrible communication and misleading promises are the bulk of the problem here, as they have been for almost every single one of the DLCs on this controversial DLC list. Now, another big question for you. What is the sentiment from the Chinese player base, the people who are obviously being courted? They're as outraged as the Westerners, if not more, by the way. Some have expressed that the Western obsession with the Three Kingdoms as like the one thing people know about Chinese history is causing an erasure of the rest of their history. Three Kingdoms is such low-hanging fruit, and there is a lot of excitement among Chinese players for Tanguts, Tibetans, Bai, and other like ethnic groups that dwell within what is now China, as well as campaigns for them. As well as other parts of Chinese medieval history, like the dynasties of the Tang, Song, and Ming. Instead, what they get is Three Kingdoms. Again, a period that non-Chinese seem more interested in than the Chinese themselves. And again, Three Kingdoms is beloved. There's no doubt about that. People love the Three Kingdoms, but it's done to death. It's been done so many frickin' times. Find another period of Chinese history to learn something about, please. Of note, this is the third ridiculous attempt that has been made to grab East Asian players. We had the Koreans all the way back in Age of Conquerors. That went so well, didn't it? Then we had the Lac Viet and Return of Rome. Oh, that went super well. I'm sure that the Vietnamese have stopped playing Age of Empires 1. I'm guessing they haven't. This has literally never worked. Plenty of East Asian players love the game, but this like ham-fisted pandering is not what makes them love it. Cut it out. Getting tedious. And they also echo previous complaints overwhelming. Need more evidence? Here are some direct testimonials from Chinese players who are figureheads in the community and who I, Tyranno, and Bub have found direct lines of communication to. Let's just briefly read through these. Quote, I was really excited about it when they initially announced it, but am quite disappointed now, to be honest. I love Three Kingdoms. However, I would really question the reason why they are included in the base game, as the period of time is not in Middle Ages. I would rather have Tang, Song, and even Ming dynasties. Unquote. Secondly, quote, as a Chinese player, I'm not satisfied with this DLC. At least 2/3 of the comments on Chinese forums express disappointment. While we respect the development team's efforts, it's regrettable that better historical choices like the Tangut, Dali Kingdom, Tibetan Empire, etc., the Three Kingdoms era should remain in Chronicles. Its inclusion here undermines the game's core identity. Unquote. Noticing a theme, let's do one more. Quote, I feel that the Three Kingdoms era is overhyped and overrepresented in media, whereas medieval China and its neighbors are underappreciated. I also feel that South China and Southeast Asia are somewhat underrated compared to the North as well. Unquote. Now, let's move on to solutions. How do we fix this? Decision makers, listen up. This is your time. How do you fix this problem? It is not the end. You do not just have to knuckle down and pretend like nothing's wrong, stick your head in the sand. You can fix this, and people will love you for it, and will continue to champion the game. Here are some options that minimize developer time, which is undeniably important. I want to respect the devs, and are as reasonable asks as possible. Please do all of these, but I've roughly overviewed them in terms of how easy and achievable I think they are. Step one, remove the heroes. Again, you can just remove them for now, but in near future, make a separate game mode or something that makes them a well thought out universal addition. Again, I'd recommend a separate game mode. That'll get the competitive guys off your back. Whereas the casual base is kind of like tepid on the heroes. Some like, some don't like, but if you make it a separate game mode geared towards casuals, and you make the heroes like more interesting, more comprehensive, more accessible, people will love this change. This crap-ass approach is not the way to do it, though. Step 2, delay the release and split the DLC into 2 parts like it should have been in the first case. The Three Kingdoms Chronicles thing and the standard DLC. Those who pre-ordered get both. Yes, you'll lose a little money, whatever, you'll gain back sentiment, and you will probably not lose nearly as many, if any, players. Again, keep the prices reasonable. This is not an excuse to go back to the garbage old price gouging model. Keep it reasonable, please. And to keep the 5 new civilizations playable and ranked thing, just add some new ones. Again, put that thing back in the slow cooker, release it later this year. You'll have options, and people will love it and will be grateful that you did it. If you apologize now, pledge to fix it, and stick to that pledge, people will forgive you and will be delighted that you are addressing the issues. They will be fine with the DLC being delayed. They will be fine with it. Now, we got 2 steps. Here's another one. Alternative step 2, rebrand the Three Kingdoms civilizations and make some light aesthetic changes to match. The Wei can become the Xianbei. The Shu can become the Bai. The Wu can become the Wuyue, maybe. Oh, that one seems a little more ambiguous. This lets them be used for the silly Three Kingdoms campaigns. You can rename them for that without breaking any promises. And the Xianbei and Bai, these were actual proper, like, within time frame medieval, like, civilizations that dwelled within what is now China. And so just do a light rebrand, rename them for the silly Three Kingdoms campaigns, and you're in business. Now, I like this less because, again, what's wrong with the Chronicles format? Did it really flop hard? In which case, please tell us. I'd love to know. Was it such a failure that this is how we can expect to get content from now on, of like pseudo Chronicles bundled in with underwhelming mainline content? That feels bad to me. I don't like that. So you could do this if you wanted. I think it's less good than the step 2 I proposed earlier, because I don't want to be right about my skepticism about the Chronicles model. It seemed like it could be pretty cool, but if you really have so little faith in it, I'd rather you be upfront with us about it. I've also linked a post from Tyranno in the description, which outlines a similar approach to this alternative step 2. It's really comprehensive. I'd highly recommend it. Tyranno really knows what she's talking about. Now, step 3. Fix the 2 proper civilizations for free. This is really important. Remove Tongut elements from the Khitans completely. And fix the stupid unique technologies and like a castle unique unit while you're at it. There's so many better options. If you want to be really nice and get a lot of goodwill, adding the Tonguts as a proper 3rd civilization and bringing those like discarded assets onto them would be a huge win. You'd get so many people coming back with open arms after that. But that's not where you can stop. You also need to add voice lines and campaigns. The voice lines don't need to be perfect, but you do need to try. If my ignorant ass can find like a half compelling translation for the word hello for both of those, I'm sure you can do likewise with all of your resources. You might also find people in the community who are happy to help you with that if you reach out to them. Not saying me, there's people who know way more than me. Reach out to the community, they will want to help. Campaigns for the Chinese and or Koreans could also be a great way to say sorry. People were so hyped for that. And again, 3 campaigns, all of them for the 3 civilizations that are controversial, that don't interact with anything else besides those 3. That's not good. That's dumb. Campaigns for Jurchens and Khitanguts, mandatory. If you split the Khitans and Tonguts, a Tongut one would be fantastic. And again, you want to butter us up, Chinese and Koreans as well. I'd be happy to pay, what is it? Okay, let's say you delayed the DLC, you added the Tonguts, you gave campaigns to all 3 of those plus Koreans and Chinese, 3 civs plus 5 campaigns. Yeah, I think $20 is not unreasonable for that if you want to keep the $20 price tag. Like, yeah, would I prefer 5 civilizations and like 3 campaigns? A little bit, but I like civilizations. This sounds like great value, and especially if the campaigns are high quality, I bet people would be happy to pay that. In summary, campaigns voice lines, they are not optional. Once again, you do not have to do this step immediately if you acknowledge it now and pledge to fix it as soon as you can. Even if you want to release the damn thing, but say, hey, we're gonna try to fix up the Khitans as soon as possible. Once we do, we're gonna add Tonguts to this DLC for free. And then the campaigns, we're going to add overtime as well. We're going to add all this stuff for free for everyone who has bought this DLC, and anyone who buys it from then on. Maybe it has a slight markup to, like, let's say you split the 2 DLCs and this one costs $10. Let's say eventually as you add content, you ramp it up to $20. That just encourages people to jump on now. Be like, oh, all these cool promises. Fantastic. Let's pre-order that shit. Good. Money. Fantastic. Just keep your damn promises. There's ways of doing this. Now, you need to remind yourself that even if you love a game, you do not have to accept its missteps. If you accept the missteps, you can expect more in future. And consumer advocacy does not equal being a hater, so to speak. Look, again, to recent precedents in the game industry, like I mentioned earlier. Creative Assembly lost a ton of goodwill after Pharaoh and one of the Warhammer 3 DLCs. I think it was Shadows of Change or something. And then consumer pushback forced them to fix their shit. And now they're actually doing quite well. People are really happy with them at the moment, from what I understand. CG Projekt Red had the whole Cyberpunk disaster, but now the game is well liked, now that they've fixed it. No Man's Sky was a legendary disaster for similar poor communication, misleading hype, dev crunch reasons. But then after years and years of work, they fixed it, and it's now beloved, and they're more successful than ever. Gaming companies do better when they honor their promises and show commitment to their game and respect of their audience. Decision makers, you can do this too. Players, you do not have to sit down and take this. It is better for the game you love to call out its mistakes rather than accepting them. Please stand up for yourselves. If you don't like this DLC and don't like how it was announced and mismanaged, express your displeasure with your wallet. If we don't get the decision makers to listen now, they'll just keep stepping on rakes going forwards, and we're going to have more and more problems with them until it gets to a point of no return. We do not want it to get there. Though, like I said earlier, if you genuinely are thrilled about this DLC, you like every part about it, go ahead. It's actually really well priced. It just can be so much better than it is. And the precedents that it's set for the game going forwards, mostly from like a communication management standpoint, are, in my opinion, intensely harmful. And don't make me feel in any way confident about the future of the game. Because of that, let's ask another question. How can the AoE2 team improve the way they communicate with the player base? Much of this DLC's issues were caused by misleading advertisement and dashed expectations. No doubt about that. So, to the decision makers, please, stop trying to surprise people. Just be straightforward with the setting and theme of a DLC up front, and then drip feed us details for there. Set expectations from the start. It's not like people are going to be like, oh, I'm already bored about it. No, you drip feed us the details after you've established what we are getting. Yeah? Speculation does drive attention, but it also drives blowback. If you want the first, you inevitably risk the second. And you need to face up to it when it happens, like now, rather than just sticking your head in the sand. And frankly, even just sharing the title and cover art of this DLC from the get-go could have prevented, like, the worst of this. I would have still have grumbled. I would have been like, wow, this is lame. I don't want 3 Kingdom civilizations in the game, but that's okay, right? At least you're not going to have people being wrathful with you, yeah? And also, ideally, in terms of improving communication, take community feedback more into account during the DLC's development wherever possible. Even if not explicitly, you don't have to, like, talk to us. Just keep a closer eye on the community's thoughts on what you are working on. And try to get a better read for community sentiment. This is something I do very regularly. I am not a forum guy. I am not a Reddit guy. I don't like any of these things, but I have a lot of really patient and diligent people in my audience who I can say, yo, can you explain to me this situation? That's what I did here with Bub and Tyranno. I was like, can you please help me get my head around all this stuff going on? And they helped me. You can do that too. You'll find people who want to tell you about community sentiment. It's not hard. Now, let us move on to my final grade, my Robbie grade of this DLC. I would give the 3 Kingdoms Age of Empires 2 DLC a D. And frankly, that might be a little bit too generous. While there are some positives, like again, the notably great pricing, really like that, the terrible communication of the powers that be has been put on full display. I am really disappointed with this DLC, and I pine for what could have been. The true East Asian, properly medieval, representing more of Chinese history DLC that we could have had. God, that would have been glorious. But as is, we get a lazy rehash and Frankenstein abomination that I do not think belongs in the game. And this is the first DLC that I've seen that I think will legitimately put a permanent dent in the game, even if just a small one. This negatively affects the game at all levels of play, preferences, and sub-communities. A lot of the other flops were ignorable, like Victors and Vanquished. And the only way to avoid this permanent dent in the game is to fix your damn DLC, as I outlined previously. I would say this is the worst DLC of all time. Victors and Vanquish was like a way worse on the content front and the pricing front. I had so many problems with that. But the problems with this one feel more structural and less ignorable. Victors and Vanquish, I had no problem just like saying, all right, I'm never buying this crap. This one changes how we can expect to get normal DLC going forwards for the worse. And I think that's a serious problem. It has shaken my personal confidence in the game profoundly. And it's even made me question making AoE2 content going forwards, though I won't belabor that point too much. It's kind of minor in the grand scheme of things. Of note, this grade does not include the patch, which I would give an A-. Very, very close to an A. The only reason I would give it an A- is I don't love the aesthetics on some of the skins, but still, we got free skins. That's fantastic. We got so many cool things. I love it. I am in love with the patch. And then this following up the patch, not good. But, as always, that is just what I think. Now I'd like to hear what you guys think. How do you think this DLC could be improved? And has this DLC changed your outlook on the game and its future? Do you think I'm overreacting? I might be, frankly. Thanks once more to Tyranno and Bub. This literally would not have been possible without you, and I'm intensely grateful to your contributions. I really hope that to anyone watching who either has decision-making power or is like on the fence about how they feel about this DLC, that this video did a good job of outlining the problems and providing a useful and actionable approach on how to fix them. Because at the end of the day, what I want is for the game to improve. Not to die, not to just become the way I personally want it, to improve. And to stay alive and attracting new people for years to come. And with luck, it'll last another decade or more. But until then, my name is Robbie Howell. Thank you for bearing with me as I whinge. And ciao for now.